everybody, and welcome to this, the TUC Union Learns webinar for National Apprenticeship Week. Today we're going to be talking about supporting apprentices, so if you're here for that, great. If not, you may be in the wrong place, but you might want to stick around anyway, because it's probably going to be very interesting. Now, my name is Matt Poynton, and I'm a projects officer with Union Learn from the TUC. But what I'm also interested in is, who are you? Why are you here today? So if you haven't done already, and I can see a few in the column at the side, just give us your name and which union you're coming from. And so let us, unions are all about sharing resources, sharing information. So let's create a bit of a community here. Now, we've got a community on screen as well. And first of all, I'm going to be talking about Yusuf. You can't see Yusuf, but he's our tech expert. And so if you have any problems with the tech, he is the guy, although you can't see him, he'll be there to help you. Now, I do know that bandwidth has been a big problem. It's been a problem for me. My son's upstairs doing his homeschooling at the moment, so there's two devices running off this. Usually, unless we say so, if you're having problems, it's your own bandwidth rather than the program. But if there are problems with the program, you should stay behind the scenes. And even if you are having bandwidth problems, you drop him a line on the chat, and he'll suggest some ways to improve it for you. Also important, we've got at the bottom of the screen there, it says ask a question. And what we want you to do is, if you've got any questions about supporting apprenticeships, how unions support apprentices, put them in that ask a question. We won't be dealing with them while the speakers are speaking, but what we'll do at the end, when we've asked all their questions, we'll be coming back to them and asking the appropriate people your questions. And we'll try and fit in as many of those as we can. So that's the ask the question. Few other technical things. We have a new feature on Crowdcast. I believe we're premiering it today, and that is live captions. So at the bottom of your screen, in the middle of the screen, there's a green button, and it says click here for live captions. You won't have seen that before. What that is that, if some people are hard of hearing, then it basically subtitles this for you. Now, I don't know how accurate these are or how effective it is, but what we're trying to do is make this as accessible for everyone. And of course, that's one of the themes with apprenticeships, is we want to give opportunities. We want to make them accessible for everyone. So it would be a bit remiss if we didn't do the same with our webinars. So there's that. It is National Apprenticeship Week 21. So if you want to tweet or share stuff on Facebook or any other social media, hashtags you can use is the Union Learn hashtag. So there's that Union Learn. Or you've got NAW 2021, which is the National Apprenticeship hashtag. Oh, we've got Tommy said the captions are looking good. Brilliant. Glad to hear that. Also, another hashtag is Build the Future. Build the Future is a strapline of this year's National Apprenticeship Week. So you might want to use that one, and also put your own union's hashtag, because while we're the TUC, we're made up of all our member unions. And we've got people, just looking through, we've got people from PFAWU, from Ulrs, from Unite. If I scan through, who else have we got? We've got people in Manchester, NEU, Plymouth, a few more Unites and Ulrs. Very strong from those two unions. And who else we've got? Yeah, more Ulrs. Wow, I'm impressed. Okay, there we are. So we've got people from a number of unions. So again, like I said, introduce yourself and put anything you need to put in the chat. Okay, Bakers, and GMP as well. Very good. So we've got lots of our unions represented, and actually here in our studio, which is a virtual studio because we're not actually together at all, we have two of our unions as well as the TUC, and I'm going to introduce the other speakers in a second. One What we want you to do today, by the way, is to tell governments during National Apprenticeship Week that unions are important for supporting apprenticeships, because at the end of the day, I do wonder if our government sometimes appreciates the good job we do. And it would be nice to tell them, I think, with some concrete positive examples. So there we are. So these are difficult times. I think that's about the understatement of the year. It was a very difficult year last year, and it's not looking to be easy. We've got, of course, COVID, which has affected the whole globe, but particularly the UK seems to have been hit harder than others for whatever reason. And then, of course, on top of that, we've got the extra pressures that Brexit's brought. And so they're difficult times, but trade unions are there defending jobs. That's what we've always done since we were set up in the 19th century. And the defending jobs also includes the jobs of apprentices. Interestingly enough, on the very first Congress of the TUC over 150 years ago, apprentices were on the agenda then. And they're still on the agenda now. You know, it is proper employment, and we need to defend apprentices. We defend their rights to complete their apprenticeship, but also maintain them, support them, because often, although not always, these are people beginning their work journey. And I don't know if you can cast your own mind back to when you were in that position. That's a really tough place to be in, when you're entering that world of work. So there we are. That's that. And we're going to be showcasing some really good examples of what two of our member unions have done to support apprentices in very different ways, but very effective ways. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. First up, we've got Sarah Jane McConnell. Now, Sarah is, I hope I get this right, the head of HR from TSSA. TSSA, for those of you who are not aware, it's the Transport Salaried Staff Association, which is a union active in the transport and travel industries, and all across UK and Ireland. They actually date back as far as 1897 from the National Association of General Railway Clerks. And I know you're really active in railway stations, and I want to do a bit of a shout out now to the guys on Stoke Station who are all TSSA members, because every time I take the train, or at least when I could, we always have a nice chat, and they give us a really good service. And there's some pretty dedicated members of yours there. But Sarah's on here today particularly because TSSA were the first trade union to sign the Union Learns Apprenticeship Charter, which is a charter signed by loads of public and private organisations, where we talk about, giving apprentices a quality experience. And I think it's amazing that TSSA signed that. So if you go on our YouTube channel, you can see the signing ceremony where Sarah's on there, I'm on there, Manuel Cortez and Paul Novak, our Deputy General Speaker, Secretary. So that's worth a look, but thanks for doing that. And I know you're going to talk about that later. But first, welcome, Sarah. Secondly, we've got Steve Turner. Now, Steve Turner is with Unite the Union. Of course, most of you will know this already, but Unite the Union is one of our biggest unions, over 1 million members. That only dates back to 2007 from a merger of Amicus and the TWU. But of course, all those unions go back way into the 19th century as well. So really strong heritage there across loads of different sectors, from finance to heavy industry. And Steve's a project worker who's developed workshops on employment rights and responsibilities for apprentices, which he's delivered across the country to try and make apprentices more aware of their rights in the workplace. So welcome, Steve. And finally, I've got my colleague, Mark Rowe. Mark Rowe is a project officer like me with Union Learn for the TUC. He probably needs no introduction to most of the people here, but Mark does have the TUC's, he's our apprenticeships lead. So that's why he's on today. He's the expert. What he doesn't know about apprenticeships is not worth mentioning. So welcome, Mark. Right, okay, and now we get to the questions. But yeah, thanks to all the people who've been putting in there in the comments, by the way, before we do that. See, PCS, CWU are in there, UCU, so that's great. And Peter says, my beard is looking good. Well, that's because we've got a lockdown and I haven't been able to have a haircut. So I'm feeling quite conscious about that at the moment. But yes, okay, question time. And question number one, which I'm going to put to everybody, but I'm going to put it to Sarah first, if you don't mind. So question is, Sarah, apprentices come from many diverse and varied backgrounds, and they face many challenges. Can you say how you, as HR manager at TSSA, support individual apprentices?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually very early on in our journey as an employer of apprentices, even though we've been supporting apprenticeships in the workplaces, our membership, for quite a while. So we're still learning. But for us, there was a very strong rationale for employing apprenticeships was to try and create that more diverse and varied pool of employees, which you've just mentioned, Matt. So we've had our first apprentice in 2019, a business and administration apprentice, level 3, and we're currently advertising for 2 organizer apprentices under the new trade union official apprenticeship that's recently become a standard. So for us, the support really starts at the beginning, the recruitment phase. It's about having the right fit. And that's not just meaning the right apprentice for us, but that we also ensure that we are offering the right apprenticeship for that person, so there's a good fit for everyone. And then the next phase for us has been to have really strong coaching for that apprenticeship. And we've really thought about this, about what we've done for our business and admin apprenticeship and what we're going to be doing for our new apprentices that will be starting in the spring of this year, is to ensure that they have at least one person who's going to coach them throughout the whole apprenticeship, and other people are able to coach them if their remit, as it is for our business admin apprenticeship, is slightly wider. We ensure that all our coaches are trained in coaching skills and how to properly support an apprentice, and what that means. What's also being really important is regular communication on the work that the apprentice is doing. So there's always someone talking to them about what work they're doing, what they're delivering on, what their outcomes are, and how that's linking back to their apprenticeship training program and the assessment that they're doing at the end of that. So it's really important to also engage with their off-the-job training. What is it that they're doing on their training course? What is it they're being taught? What they're currently working on, and to try and ensure that your apprentices share that with you so that you can understand the work that they're doing and you can give them positive feedback. The other thing that we have tried to do that we think is really important is to offer as wide a work remit as possible for our apprentices, so that they have every opportunity to do as many different types of work and work in different teams and departments as possible. Because when you offer someone an apprenticeship in your organization, you're not doing it just to fill a gap in your organization, although that might be one or part of the reason. You're offering somebody a future career opportunity. So you have to make sure that they're doing something in every team. They're fulfilling all the different types of work that interests them, that they want to do, and they're gaining as many skills as possible to build their own CV. So whether they stay with you or whether they move on to another job elsewhere, they're taking with them a whole load of experience and skills that they can talk about for the future and that will help them gain future employment. It's also really important to give apprentices, we've found, the time to attend the off-the-job training. It's got to be at least 20%, but you've got to really make sure that that time happens. So we ask our apprentices to schedule it in their diary, to blank it out so everyone can see that they're on training at that point, or they're doing their training work, they're reading, their research, they're writing, whatever their portfolio work is. And to be really engaged with that as an employer about what they're doing. So that for us, I hope that answers the question, Matt, is what we think is really fundamental to supporting an apprentice in the workplace.
Okay, yeah, well, there's lots to think of there. What I would say is if anyone's got any questions based on Sarah's answer, do put them in the ask a question thing at the bottom. I can't see this, but I don't think we've got any questions yet. So you do have anything to add there? But yeah, thanks. That's interesting. I mean, you did mention the trade union official apprenticeship standard, and that's something that some people may not be aware of. But I believe you, Sarah, are actually instrumental in developing that. So well done. And it's an apprenticeship for trade unionists, for trade union officers or officials. And am I right in saying it was developed across the movement with both large, medium-sized and small-sized unions all contributing? So it's got something to offer for every kind of union?
Oh, absolutely. There was a group of 10 unions that were on the what's the government calls the Trailblazer Group to create the apprenticeship. So there was other smaller unions like ourselves on it, such as Nautilus, RCN, RCM, and then there were larger unions on it. The chair of the Trailblazer Group is actually the HR director from Unite. And then there's GMB were quite fundamental in it as well. So it was a real collaborative approach, and it was a real exercise in trade unions working together for the wider trade union movement. And the first cohort of apprenticeships, the first program starts in the spring, the end of April. So if any unions want to be part of that, they can find out more by going onto the Institute of Apprenticeships website to find the standard, or they can contact Ruskin College, who are the current training providers of that apprenticeship. Okay, or myself. Brilliant. I'll put my email in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Okay, thanks a lot. Steve, I'm going to ask you the same question, but because it's been a while since I asked Sarah, I'm going to repeat it. So yeah, it is apprentices come from many diverse and varied backgrounds and face many challenges, Steve. Can you say how you tell us their Unite?
Thanks, Matt. You did break up a little bit there. And I was a little bit concerned about the live captions having a strong Lancashire accent, so it might not be up too well. Yeah, so the question about the problems that apprentices face. One of the issues, one of the initiatives that we have at Unite is to deliver employment rights and responsibilities to apprenticeships. And basically, if I give you a flavour of what we cover in these courses, we talk about how we promote trade unions, legal rights and responsibilities, grievances and disciplinaries, holiday rights, equality and diversity, and how ULRs work, and of course about trade unions itself, how to join a trade union. So we can mix and match dependent on the audience. What we do is to go into organisations like colleges, but also into big, large companies. So this is where we can deliver that. The good thing that we do set up as well is, if you can imagine when an apprentice actually comes into the workplace, it's pretty daunting. So we always make sure that our reps are there at inductions. So you've got your workplace rep that can talk about the industrial side of the trade unions. But we have union learner reps there. So that's one of the important strategies that we do have. And in the larger companies, we do set up apprenticeship groups or apprenticeship committees, and really empower apprentices to take ownership of this. This tends to work well because what will happen is when you develop that dialogue, they will talk about the training that they received, but also how they can improve the training that they've received. So they really are feeling as though they've got a stakeholder into the apprenticeship as well. And of course, the key to this is to say to the apprentices themselves, ask somebody to come forward. Come forward. Do you want to be an apprenticeship rep, which can deal with apprenticeship issues? So these are regular things that we do to try and involve apprentices to that. The other thing that we do, which is probably unique in some respects, is Unite actually have officers that go into schools. So we have a Uniting Schools project, and I've actually been into one of these Uniting School projects that we run. Very, very interesting, because you've got to really speak to the children on their level, and it can be fun as well. So if we ask them a question of what do they think a union is, it really is fun. So we've got to pitch it at the right level, but that's important. It's important that people do get exposure to what trade unions are at an early age. So these are sort of programs that we put together, but also there's a community side as well. So we will look to work with different councils and employment task forces, so we can put together our sort of theme on apprenticeships, why they should be protected, etc., etc. So there's quite a lot of initiatives we do on as Unite. Okay, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve. I must admit, I'm glad you mentioned the schools program, because a couple of years ago I went in and did a bit of work with your Unite in schools, supporting them going around NACRO centres across the country, and there were some very challenging young people there. It was really worthwhile, and it was great to talk to people who really didn't know anything about even what a trade union is, and yet they were about to enter the world of work. And it's important they know, it's important they know about protecting their rights, because in today's workplace, it's very precarious. So thanks for that, Steve. Mark, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I think it's quite hard to follow on from those two great answers that we've had so far. But in terms of the challenges that apprentices face, and we've covered that, not knowing what your rights are is almost fundamental to it. Lots of people coming into the workplace don't really understand what their rights are. But when you've got a good employer like TSSA, it makes the world of work a lot easier. But in terms of entitlement, I think what we need to look at is getting an understanding with those individuals about the fact that as an apprentice, you do have a contract just like any other employee. And on top of that, you've also got a commitment statement, and that commitment statement is your passport to your quality apprenticeship, because it includes working with the provider, whoever that provider is, working with the employer, and working hopefully with a trade union, just to make sure that everything works out fine. I mean, difficulties apprentices have is around some of the issues around time to train. There's lots of pressure from employers, where employers are trying to push back all the time on that 20% time to train. And we need, as trade unions, we need to be aware of that and try and deal with that on an almost daily basis. And the other challenges out there are around the diversity issues. Lots of people from BAME communities, people who are in disability groups, they don't take up apprenticeships in the same way as other groups do. So the diverse mix we should be trying to ensure in a workplace isn't always there. I think part of the issue is bringing us round to look at some of the tools that we've sort of developed over the last 4 or 5 years. And hopefully those tools will still be relevant after 31st of March and after we perhaps moved on. And certainly for reps who are on this webcast today, I think one of the issues will be ensuring that you've had a look at the Apprenticeship Toolkit and you use that in your negotiation, whether it's ULRs using it or whether it's the shop stewards using it. But that toolkit just gives you a sort of broad range of negotiating tips and tricks, really. And it's important that we actually use that. In terms of individual apprentices, yeah, I'm pretty sure you all know that we've put together the Apprenticeship Essentials App. And one of the ideas of the app was to enable individuals to rate their individual apprenticeship. And that's good, but I don't think it should do that in isolation. And I think if trade unions can get our apprentices to download the app and use the app to rate their apprenticeship, then what we can do then is the reps can then have a better discussion or a more focused discussion with apprentices on any issues that crop up. So it's almost like a two-way tool. I mean, I guess where we were at when we developed it was all about the individual and rating their own apprenticeship, checking their pay, checking the time off. But we can have that conversation using that app, and I don't see why we don't do that. And we've also developed a number of tools. So if you go on the website, there's loads of tools on there. There's loads of e-learning. I've looked today actually, and top of the list at the moment is 20% time off. So there's a little e-notes learning course out there where we can just have a look around what 20% off means, how it would work, etc., etc. So I hopefully, Matt, that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I must admit, Mark, about a year or two back before the lockdown, we did some work with the BAME Apprenticeship Alliance, and we spoke to a big group of apprentices from various backgrounds, and they were saying from a lot of the BAME communities, they got pressured. They wanted to do the apprenticeships. Employers wanted to take them on, but their parents were saying, no, you've got to go and get a degree because your cousin's got a degree in that. And these pressures can be from the strangest of places and really interesting, but that was an extra barrier that they had. Okay, I'm going to go on because time is of the essence. But Sarah, it's one for you now. TSSA have recently signed the Union Learn Apprenticeship Charter, making you the first trade union to do so. How important is that for you in demonstrating TSSA's commitment to supporting apprentices?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Well, it was really important actually, and it was twofold. One, obviously, as a trade union, we want to support the work of TUC and Union Learn and to demonstrate that support. But of course, the charter is a standard; it sets a standard, and I think as a trade union employer, we have to have really high standards. So for us, it was, absolutely clear that it was the right thing to do was to sign the charter. But it wasn't just an exercise in signing it because we can. It's actually been a really useful exercise because the charter, not just the one there, but the longer charter and the toolkit that goes with it that Mark's already mentioned, really lays out some clear principles for employers to follow. And that was really helpful. We were new as an employer to employing apprenticeships. And so it gave us a guide really to what we should be doing. And we shouldn't pretend that just because we're a trade union, we are perfect employers and we get everything right. So it gave us a standard to follow. It gave us an opportunity to think about and discuss with the TUC and Union Learn about the terms and conditions we're offering, what our progression opportunities are, about clear supervision, and engaging with our own trade union, our staff and members of the GMB, and about creating a safe environment. So as an HR manager, it gave me a really great benchmark to follow. And it also, I thought, it sends a really strong message to our own apprentices that we support them and we take their apprenticeship seriously. And also to our wider workforce that we're not just having apprenticeships within our own workforce to have, a cheap employment, which is, I think, sometimes what apprentices can be seen as, but actually that we're having an apprentice because we want them to be a key part of our workforce. So that's what we wanted, to set our standards high as an employer, and that's why we decided we should sign the charter and just try to live out those principles to the best of our ability as a small employer and as a trade union. So it's been a really great experience. So thank you for that.
I mean, I don't know if you can help me on this one, Sarah, but what are those principles? Because some people might not be aware of the charter, and I think it's a really good tool. If your union wants to sign it, get in touch with myself or Mark Rowe, and we will make that happen. Even if it's digitally, that's how TSSA did it, and it was very successful. But what kind of things are you agreeing to with that charter?
Well, most importantly is to have good terms and conditions that are comparative with the rest of your workforce. To do that, it gave us the guidance to create a proper job description to ensure it's job evaluated, to ensure our apprentices are paid the right rate of pay for their role and they've got equitable terms and conditions to the rest of our staff, that we ensure that there's progression opportunities, that we ensure that the apprentice has clear supervision and guidance. So I talked before about our coaching program for apprentices. And it also talks about engaging with trade unions. So we don't have, it's important for us as a trade union to not forget that our staff are members of a trade union. So to participate and work with them on our apprenticeship program. And also to create a safe environment for apprentices. Particularly, it talks about the principles of thinking about young apprentices. Our first apprentice that we've got at the moment, a business and admin apprentice, is young, is only 21. So it's to really, that has helped us reflect about how we support someone in what is actually our workforce is an aging workforce, how we support someone who's young in the workplace to help them feel part of our workforce and to gain all the skills that they need to be able to move forward in their career. So that was the main principles that I took from the charter.
Okay, yeah, that's brilliant. And I have to say, I remember from the signing how confident and how articulate your apprentice was. I thought she was really good, particularly when you're thinking you're in there with your General Secretary and the Deputy General Secretary of the TUC, and I thought she came across really well. So, okay, yeah, Mark, next one's for you. So what are the challenges facing union learning reps to support apprentices? And how is the charter an important partnership tool?
Yeah, you just caught me in the middle of a tweet there, so I'm just going to retweet Sean Dixon's tweet. So yeah, I mean, I think it is a fundamental principle that some of the issues that we face are around that. What does a quality apprenticeship look like? And that's why. I mean, Sarah's organisation has signed the charter, and that's fantastic. We're hoping that we're going to get the bakers and hopefully community will sign it very shortly as well. But it's that challenge of what is a quality apprenticeship, and that's why the principles of the charter are around that quality statement. So it's about a good job. It's about fair pay. It's about quality training. It's about trade unions being involved with those apprenticeship programs. And it's about being accessible to all and health and safety. But I think most important for us, and this is probably our biggest challenge really, is that employers from time to time do see apprentices as a cheap workforce. So one of the principles of the charter is that apprenticeships are there to complement the workforce, not supplement it. So we have that as our sort of guiding light, really. We know apprenticeship numbers have dropped off massively, and we know that lots of employers out there are sort of have ripped up their 5-year plan and are now looking at a new 5-year plan based on the new normal, whatever the new normal is. And it's about us as trade unions negotiating what those new jobs look like. I mean, TUC want to look at a Green New Deal. So there's all sorts of new jobs in the sort of sustainability industry. You know, every company in the UK will be looking at what their carbon footprint is, and that'll create apprenticeship jobs and roles. So we need to think about that. We need to make sure that apprenticeships get a fair deal. And I think we need to take into account those diversity issues I mentioned before, because clearly there's lots of young people who are facing economic hardship and loss of jobs because of the COVID crisis. So young people are really badly affected by the present situation. So we need to think about how can we get those people onto skills agendas and apprenticeships that are going to sort of make them economically active, but also create a career for them. And we've already covered the, BAME and disability issues as well. So culturally, there's work to do around that. But I think for us as trade unions, it's about what is the mix of of apprenticeships in the workplace. How can we encourage a diverse workplace, and how can we encourage a fair workplace? So I'll leave it there, Matt, if that's all right.
Okay, that's fine, Mark, that is. Steve, I've got a question for you now, sir. Trade unions also discuss issues with apprentices. How does that process work with young apprentices entering the workplace? I mean, I'm talking about the fact that you personally have put together and you hold employment rights and responsibilities workshops. And how do those go? And why are those important?
Thanks for that. I think really they're really vitally important, because I think the world has changed, certainly from when I was apprentice. And when we go into colleges and we talk about employment rights and responsibilities, it seems as though there's a lack of understanding of trade unions, what trade unions do. So that is something that is, we certainly got a feel for. And what is interesting is when we do talk about rights and responsibilities, but who can support them in the workplace? The apprentices themselves are taken back by what unions themselves can offer. So that's a really positive side to it. And like I said before, the other side to all this is when the apprentice is going through the apprenticeship journey, it's not just about inductions, it's not just about providing rights and responsibilities courses, but it's making sure through our union learning reps that we have regular contacts with apprentices through their learning journey. And of course, Learn with Unite, we've got a learning Moodle, which is you can access if you put Learn with Unite in Google, and you will be able to get that. And there's a plethora, there's a library of courses on there, which is useful, which are added on courses to their apprenticeships. So we do support apprenticeships all the way through their apprenticeship and making sure that we have that regular contact. But just as important as that is, like I said before, Matt, is to encouraging young people to get involved within the trade union movement so that they can represent their views of the world. Like we can't do that as much now. So that's important. And one of the other issues, one of the other schemes that we actually run is apprenticeship mentoring schemes. So these apprenticeship mentoring schemes, it's about giving apprenticeships a safe place to sit down with experienced reps and to go through issues that they may have. So it may not be in terms of education, but it might be in terms of their life at this moment in time, the problems that they face. It may well be they could have issues with gambling, because we know now in terms of gambling, if you've got a smartphone, you can gamble any time of the day. And of course, when you're an apprentice for the first time, you may have quite a lot of money sloshing around that you can spend. And these traps are quite easy to fall into. So it's about supporting apprenticeships socially as these schemes run, these apprenticeship mentoring schemes. And again, what it says to the apprentices is, where unions are there as a friend to you to just follow your learning journey, not just as apprentice, but also once they've finished their apprenticeship and they go into the world of work, that they can see that they are supported and the unions are a trusted voice and there for them.
Right. Yeah, just one question. I mean, by the way, I like the fact that you're taking that holistic approach and you're looking at the life beyond work as well, particularly with the gambling. It's a big problem when people are at home, itchy fingers, well, why not have a punt on this, a punt on that, and suddenly all that money you've earned is gone, isn't it? So, brilliant work there. But can you tell us one of the employers that you've worked with who's been particularly supportive?
Yeah, well, we work with British Aerospace. We also work with Westonhouse, a company called Westonhouse, which was formerly British Nuclear Fuels, and they run the successful apprenticeship mentoring scheme. Yeah, so these are the type of companies that we do work with.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Now, that's the end of our questions, but there are your questions. I've got 3 here, so I'm going to go through there. And I've also had a look in the chat, and Teresa's put something in the chat that looks a bit like a question as well. So I'll go for these 3 first, and if we've got time, I'll go with Teresa's as well. So the first one is, how do we get companies to get youngsters to become apprentices? University isn't meant for everyone, and even if it is, does anyone think that school leavers should first learn a trade before going to university? From experience, the level of university dropouts is so shockingly high in the UK compared to other countries. And that's by A. Louisa D.B. St. Bartholomew Brown Morgan. And there are a couple of replies to that, which you can read if you want. But let's have a look. Daniel Guys talked about unions working with train operating companies. How are unions different? How are different unions working with train operating companies to promote apprenticeships for the railway industry? So that's a railway industry question. So possibly Sarah could comment on that. And there's also a specific one about TSSA here. How do TSSA disabled apprentices, in particular those who might find it difficult to take up the opportunity to work in different workspaces? So I guess mainly for Sarah, that one.
Okay, I think that was three questions there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how this works, because that's down as a single question, and then these are replies on it that seem to be like separate questions. So yeah, maybe that's my tech inefficiency there, but
okay. I'll do my best, Matt. So I think there was a question there about recruiting young people who may not want to go down the university route. I think that's a really good question. Our current apprentice is doing a business and admin apprenticeship, which is a level 3. And what we did is we worked with a training provider on our recruitment strategy as well, because what we wanted to do was actually find and offer the opportunity to a young person who may have not be slightly disenfranchised from the education system. So that was a real focus for us, and we worked with an agency to help us with that campaign, and it was really successful, and we had an amazing shortlist of young people. It was actually really hard to select just one person to be our apprenticeship, and all of them were young people who had either decided they didn't want to go to university, or they couldn't access university because of their family circumstances, or they had tried university and it hadn't worked for them and they had dropped out. They all had amazing and excellent skills and competencies. So we actually did a very targeted focus, and our new apprentices sort of kind of come from that background, and we're learning so much from that person as well. So I hope that answers it, that I think you have to have some kind of targeted campaign and recruitment strategy to enable, to fill that gap that does exist, and offer that opportunity to those young people where, as someone said in the chat, that university isn't the only route.
Yeah, I mean, there was a question here, Sarah, about TOCs, train operating companies. Did TSSA work with TOCs, or is that the other rail unions?
No, we absolutely work with train operating companies.
Okay, so maybe
I'm not sure I can really answer it that well, because I work with our staff as the HR manager, rather than out in the field with our members. But absolutely, we do have a whole section of work like Unite do, where we work with train operating companies on employing apprentices and supporting apprentices in the workplace. And we have plenty of members who are also apprentices.
Okay, and what about the disabled one? Any specific comment on that? How do you support disabled apprentices who might find it difficult to take up the opportunity to work in different workspaces?
I think that's a really good question. I think it would obviously depend on the different disability. We certainly wouldn't see that as a barrier to the apprenticeships that we're currently offering. We've got, as I said, we've got one business and admin apprenticeship, and we're currently advertising for 2 organizer apprentices. We work with any of our staff members on trying to overcome those barriers and work with them, whether it be a physical disability or a neurodiverse disability. We've been successful with that with our current staff, so it's certainly something we would look to with an individual for an apprenticeship going forward. It's hard to kind of give an example without specifics, but I think there are always solutions, that it shouldn't be seen as a barrier.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on to another question, Mark, the disabled aspect, I know, didn't you help co-author some TUC resources on making apprenticeships more accessible?
We did. We've done a range of little booklets, really, on different aspects of equality and diversity, basically. And one of them is about disabilities and apprenticeships. And I think if we look at this government campaign at the moment, Build the Future, then I think what we should be doing as trade unions is being involved in that general mix. What is the mix of apprenticeships we need for our workplace? Because we're an electrical company doesn't mean to say we just employ electricians. We need accountants, we need mechanics, we need people to drive the lorry and stuff like that. So we need to understand what the mix is in a workplace, what the apprenticeship models would look like, and the sort of what's the sort of 5 to 10 year plan, and taking into account the fact that we need a diverse mix of people. So that's the key thing. But just going back on a couple of points that have come up, Matt, I think the other thing to say is we did a webinar on mentoring. I think it was September, October. It's on the website, but we'll try and find a link, and we'll put the link up. And it's all about that mentoring support, really, that reps can give. And then there was another question. There's quite a number of questions on the levy. And I think what people need to understand about the levy is, some companies are just using it like it's a tax and we're not interested. But a lot of companies, particularly public sector organisations, where they've got a big levy pot and they can't spend it on the apprenticeship training because there's not enough apprenticeships going through the organisation. There is a facility to move some of your levy money into one of your sort of support organisations. So, for instance, if it was an health authority that had outside catering, then it would be possible to move some of that money into, say, apprenticeships in catering in that other company. So what I'm made a little note to myself today to actually do a blog on that. And what we'll do is we'll put that blog up this week. And I think I've got a PowerPoint on it as well. So I'll try and make a link to the PowerPoint as well. But I need Yusuf and Keith Hatch to help me out with that one. But I'm sure we can put something up that'll just enable us to think about whether that levy money stays in the organisation or some of it goes out. But again, it's all to do with negotiation, and we as trade unions should be negotiating those things.
Yeah, it's probably worth pointing out there as well that if you're in, for example, the position that Sarah's in, if you're a small trade union and you want to take on apprentices and you're not a levy payer, I believe that pot where you can, I don't know how you phrased it, Mark, but where you can go through your supply chain, you could also talk to some of the bigger unions. So if you wanted to, take on an apprentice with the trade union official staff, and you also one of the smaller unions, have a chat to your colleagues in one of the bigger unions. They might be able to support you with that. And I know that's allowed now because I heard that in a meeting last week. Okay, I'm going to go on to another question. This is from Julia Baldwin from Ulrs. Hi, Julia. And she says there are still many large employers that are not yet engaged with the delivery of apprenticeships. Why do you think this is? And what more can be done to ensure that the apprenticeship agenda features as a key negotiation agenda for all union reps in the workplace? I mean, I guess this is for everyone, but particularly I think, Steve, I know you work with a lot of larger employers, so do you want to go first?
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Julia. Yeah, I mean, working with larger employees, I mean, we do rely quite a lot on the industrial reps there to engage with with the management teams to encourage them to take on apprenticeships, and that's something, to be quite honest, which happens in large in large companies on a regular basis. So that would be part of probably the pay negotiations in terms of how many apprenticeships are you taking on this year? How can we help with that? And it is disappointing that you know, some of the larger companies don't see this as an avenue going forward. But I do see that as a mix of not just our job, but also of the industrial reps to encourage and have dialogue with the larger companies to encourage apprenticeships.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I am going to move on because we don't have a lot of time left because we've got to finish on the hour. And there are two more questions. I think that's probably all we'll have time for. This one, I'm guessing this is more for Sarah because you were in a Trailblazer group. But it said, why did the Trailblazer we take out ERR, employment rights and responsibilities, out of apprenticeships? This was a valuable part of the old frameworks that gave us time to deliver to apprentices on their employment rights. Now it is not mandatory, and it is difficult to get a provider to timetable this into the delivery timetable. That's Peter Monaghan. I don't know, Monaghan, sorry. I don't know if that's you, Sarah, or actually Mark, having read it in full. But Sarah, start off. Can you help with that?
Sure. I'm just reading the question again as you you're couldn't quite hear you properly. So actually we haven't taken employment rights and responsibilities out of this trade union official apprenticeship. It's in there. Maybe it's called something different, but it's definitely in there as a key knowledge. So I don't think that's true. I'm not sure if that answers the question in the right way.
I think he's on about in general rather than that specific one. But maybe Mark, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, a little bit. I think if we think of government agenda is all about employers driving the apprenticeship agenda, and I think one of the things they did was take away that employment rights and responsibilities issue. It doesn't raise itself very much in Trailblazers, but then again, we've got some tools. I mean, me and Steve Turner have certainly been doing employment rights and responsibilities workshops all over the place in colleges and with employers. So we've got the tools ourselves, and if we're talking to employers and we've got an induction process that we're involved in, and then we should be able to say that part of that induction process is us talking to the apprentices about their employment rights and responsibilities. I think that might cover what we're.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Peter's background is, but my guess is that it was in the frameworks. It's not in the standards. Why were the unions who were on the panel to negotiate these things allow for it to be taken out? That's how I'm understanding it. My guess is, and again, this is not an official TUC answer, this is just trying to guess, is that we didn't want it taken out, but we were outvoted. kind of thing. But you know, maybe that's something we could come back to you on if you want to. We are a bit pushed for time, so I'm going to go. We have a question from Mark here, and I think it's quite an easy one to answer because I think actually Yusuf, who's behind the scenes, would be able to help with this as well. Is there a central place where ULRs can have access to material helpful to them in how we support apprentices going forward, as it would be good to have access to such material? Now, my understanding is we've got loads on the website, but which Yusuf is in charge of. But Mark, can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely look on the website, and hopefully Yusuf will just put up the link to apprenticeship pages. And if we look on there, there's plenty of information, plenty of learning you can do, plenty of access to tools. The toolkit, Apprenticeship Toolkit, it's been about since about 2013, 2014. We've amended it a number of times, but it's still relevant today, and you can use that as the basis of your negotiation and your understanding of the sort of the whole agenda, if you like. So that's where I would start. Hope that answers the question, Matt.
Yeah, and just remember there was something in the chat, because we've got a couple of minutes before we have to sign off. There was something from Teresa about unspent levies, but there has been a load of discussion there. So my guess is that that's answered. Well, there we are. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, everyone. You know, over 100 people signed up today, so that's absolutely brilliant. You know, after most of us have probably got webinar fatigue by this stage. But yeah, great to see you all. Thanks to our speakers, Mark, of course, who is one of my colleagues at UniLearn, Steve from Unite, thanks, and Sarah from TSSA. We don't have the exact schedule, but if you check out the UniLearn website, they are advertised on there, or the UniLearn social media feed. Enjoy National Apprenticeship Week as much as you can during this lockdown. I certainly hope it will all finish soon and we can go back to actually supporting workers face-to-face in unions, because I rather miss that at the moment. But thanks a lot, and goodbye.